and I am Damini. I'm the content head at Sipping Thoughts, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to yet another amazing webinar with us. You're not a drop in ocean, you are an entire ocean in a drop. This is what Rumi has said, and this is what will sum up what our amazing session for today that we have lined up for you is all about. Cultural, social conditioning, norms, and structures can limit our view of self. In this session, we recognize some of the stereotypes, real life challenges, and discuss some techniques, stories on how we can overcome and break free from these situations in the process of becoming a change agent for self and a better you. So let me introduce our speaker for today, Pooja.
Hi.
Pooja Bajpai. Pooja is a certified coach from ICF, Equity and Inclusion Specialist, and Psychodrama Leadership Practitioner. She is also the founder of the Talent Alchemy. With over 2 decades of experience and as a former leader with Big Four, she has worked across a wide range of clients, Fortune 500, Indian conglomerate, and Government of India. She has coached senior leaders, returning mothers, and young high potential achievers from corporate, social sectors, and academics, among others. So before I hand it over to Pooja, let me introduce a little bit about Sipping Thoughts. Sipping Thoughts is a multi-platform media company co-founded by Sukirti Gupta and Meeta Gudgotia. It was set up keeping in mind our tagline is real women, real thoughts. And we are a no judgment platform where we want to create a strong network of women for women and men who support women. So let me hand over the reins of the session to Pooja. Pooja, welcome, and please take it over.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Damini, for the introductions. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining in today for this expert series. I know Mondays are not easy, and I do believe that we are going to be making the most of the 1 hour that we have today for ourselves. So with that and without further ado, I think I'd jump in and start talking about some of the things that we intend to cover over the next hour. And I think as we were, as Damini started off with the session and we were putting down thoughts for what we're going to cover today, I believe that most of us who are here on the call, and I see 70 plus of us already, listening in, resonate somewhere with this saying from Rumi, which is that you are not a drop in the ocean, but an entire ocean in the drop. Do you think that this is something which has got you here? Do you feel that power within when we talk about inner potential? And please keep, typing in and sending in your views so that, we can make this more interactive. I think the idea is that we are able to get in to hear from you as well, though the mode is virtual. But I think that's something that we do wonderfully, these days. So keep sending in your thoughts. And I think that to me is definitely a tagline, I would say, that I lean on a lot of times for any work or any new thing that is happening around. So I think one of the other things that I'd like to really talk about to you as we delve into the topic of tapping your inner potential is that the belief that we have in ourselves about, what is it that we are, what is it that's holding us back? We all do believe that we are the ocean, the drop, and not just in the ocean, but the entire ocean in that one single drop. So what do you think is holding us back? Any thoughts there? Okay, so you could raise your hand using the Zoom feature, or you could write in the chat box. I think the chat box is really active right now. So what do you think? Our own comfort space, of course. Yes, I think that's something that really holds us back. Anything else? Any other thoughts that come to your mind? That's probably holding us back. Okay, and I think as you get your thoughts together, the way we have structured the next hour is to be able to get some thoughts from you. And at the same point of time, offer some tools that you would be able to take back. There would be questions that would come up. There'd be reflections that come up maybe after the session. So more than happy for you to kind of have those dealt after the, in the last 15 minutes of the session. We would also be doing a little exercise as we go through what we have for you today. Essentially, this is what I have seen in my journey, talking to my coaches and various other people, that these are few of the things that really hold people back. And if you look at those pictures, it's essentially a lot about self-doubt. It's a lot about the support that one might get. Sometimes it's to do with fear. Sometimes it's to do with overthinking and just laziness. Any and all of these can actually result into us not being able to realize our true potential. Top this up with the gender stereotypes. Top this up with a lot of social and cultural norms that we often start experiencing and seeing in our lives. And I'd love to kind of have you kind of type in as reflections are coming in, and as you kind of look at what is really holding you back, to my question at the start. What is really holding you back when you look at, tapping into your inner potential? What is the kind of a roadblock that you might have faced? So keep typing that in. I'd be happy to see as to what really comes up for you. And as you do that, I think I kind of come up to talk about, when we say inner potential, something that is really at the heart of that inner potential, or the center of it, is yourself, right? I think it's the fact that, you yourself are at the center of this entire play. And, what starts off as leadership as well, from my own experience with the corporate, and even now as an entrepreneur, it is really important to look at the self, and then around that comes in the family and then the society. So it's almost like a concentric circle, if I may say. So looking at self becomes very important, and raising that self-awareness becomes very important. And while I wait for you to probably, think as to what might be holding you back, I think I would, go ahead and start talking about typically a journey. It's like discovering or tapping into your inner potential is almost like a journey that one undertakes. If I were to look at, kind of what has really worked for myself and what I really offered to my coaches in my sessions, and, even as a person who's been leading large teams, one of the key things that I would say is, kind of just going back would be around, seeing as to what is it that, sorry, just bear with me as we look at just some goof up with the slides here. So, what is it? So this is you at the center. I think that was the whole idea here. But, what is it that you need to be looking at from a standpoint of purpose? And I think something that I really heavily rely on is, the aspect of purpose. And planning and connecting with your purpose is something that can be seen as pretty much a first step as you are starting on this journey of yourself, and discovering yourself and tapping into your inner potential. And what I use here as a common tool, while there could be several ways, there's Ikigai, there's several other techniques that you might be using. It is about the inside out approach. So the Golden Circle by Simon Sinek is something which I refer very often. And I think the reason that I lean onto it heavily is largely because, it's the inside out approach which connects you more deeply with your, with the purpose, and it's acting and connecting a direct connection with your brain. So let's take an example there. When I say the why, the how, and the what, anything that comes to your mind, have you ever tried this approach? Let me just hear before I just go ahead and download the approach to you. Okay. I'll probably just take a 30 seconds pause to see what's coming up for you. Have you heard of the Simon Sinek approach? Have you used it in some format? A yes or a no? And this is a free space, a non-judgmental space. Okay, not heard of it so far. Okay, Damini, thank you. Anyone else? Because that would allow me to then probably, kind of, that can be a very good tool for you to kind of deep dive into. Okay, so I'll take this cue from Damini right now, and I'm assuming the rest of you would type in. because it would just help for me to be able to make this more meaningful for you, the entire session and whatever time that we are spending this afternoon. So I think so when it comes to the outside in or the inside out approach, the why, the how, and the what, let's take a simple example of Surf Excel and the tagline that says "Daag achhe hain," right? That's the tagline. And that's really connecting with the why of it, right? It's really connecting with you at a very different level. They are not really saying that they are a brand that is helping you wash, and they are not a detergent brand, but they are connecting with you through a story and talking about the why. Similarly, if you really talk about, if I were to share with you from my own journey as to what I do, and I say that, my last project was with the Department of Post, for example, and with the Government of India, helping them set up a large unit driving, the India Post Payments Bank. And I talk about that, and why we were doing it was essentially because we were trying to build this in to be able to make an impact on the country and drive financial inclusion. And that story is more tied into what we were doing, how we were doing in terms of the processes, and why we were doing it was just financial inclusion. But if I just turn this around and start with the why, and basically tell you that, the last project that I was doing was essentially around helping the length and breadth, helping drive financial inclusion.
Pooja, I'm sorry, let me just interrupt you for a second. I think there is some issue with the chat box of Zoom. Everyone, I know that you have been raising your hands, and everyone was really eager to comment, and they've been reaching out to us. I don't know what, there were some Zoom technical issues, and guys, please excuse us for these technical issues because we can't keep a check on them right now. The chat has been enabled. We don't know how it was disabled, but yes, yes, everyone was excited to tap, and that's why they were raising their hands.
For a minute, I was like, am I really talking to real people? And
no, the chat has been enabled now. There was some issue with Zoom. So yes, we can continue. Thank you.
Thanks for jumping in there, Damini. I really appreciate. And absolutely, we need to allow ourselves this space of, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and having these errors. It's absolutely fine. These do happen. So while you have heard of the golden circle, okay, fantastic. I think I've already started doing a deep dive into it. So why don't I just continue?
So perhaps we can just ask everyone, what are they afraid of once again? Because no one really got to type everything.
Let's go ahead and do that.
Everyone really wants to, just mention that one thing, because fear of failure has been mentioned even on our Facebook chat. The people who have joined us on Facebook Live, they have also, that fear of failure is one thing that holds them back.
Okay, I think I can read the chat. I think that's good, Damini. I think, thank you. Self-doubt. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Unknown fears, letting people down. Okay, I get that. Fear of loneliness. Procrastination. Constantly living in this virtual space. Okay, yeah, that's very recent, I think. Chatter. Fear of being judged. Well, thank you so much. I think this is really kind of helping me get a sense that we are all talking to each other, and this is the best way that we can do this right now, given the situations that we are all in. So I think self-doubt, absolutely. So I am hearing about fears. I'm hearing about mental chatter, the fear of being judged, the virtual spaces, judgment of others. And I think the second question that I come up with there is, what part of this is in your control? All this that you're talking about, is this coming in from the external world or is it internal? Yeah. And type in your responses, not just to me, but type into the entire host, because I can see some coming in privately. I'm so glad that most of you are typing in internal. Actually, all of you have typed it as internal so far. And I think this is a point that I would want you to reflect upon. So I'm changing the course slightly. Bear with me because of the first 10 minutes, I think 5 minutes, whatever we spent, we jumped into something, so we'll come back. But I see all of you typing this internally. How does this make you feel? All of this is resting within us. Just take a moment to soak that in. All of this that we are saying, the fear, the self-doubt is all resting within us. So who's the one who's solving for it? And as Mahatma Gandhi said, you got to be the change if you want to see the change. And if all of this is in your control, of course, so some of you might be feeling trapped with it. You have to start with self. Fantastic, Pragati. Thank you for saying that. I know Sween is saying that, and we all will have to do it. Great, fantastic. So we are now at a platform, we are understanding the importance of what we are dealing with, what's keeping us away from realizing our potential, and if we were to solve for it, how we will solve for it. Okay, so now I come to another exercise, which because we were not going that route, I had to hold it. The other little question that I now have for you with this awareness that you have brought in for yourself is, take down 30 seconds and put in the names of people whom you provide care to. Okay, and this is sipping thoughts. You could have your, I do have my cup, for sipping my tea, coffee, whatever you might be carrying within it. Take a piece of paper and pen and put down whom you give thoughts, and you could either do it on paper, you could keep typing in here. So Shubh says friends, son, mother, sister, brother, of course, parents. And by the way, your extended network could also come in here, especially in times like these when we are really extending support to so many people. Family, of course. And in family, let's try and specify a little more. That would help us. Mentors. And you can have more than one person. You just don't have to limit it to. Lovely. I am very happy. I see a hand raised there. Damini, I think Vinod has a hand raised. Lovely. Close friends. Now, I have done this as a psychologist and counselor. I'm more available to strangers. Okay. So yeah, you are offering it through your work to a lot more people. Sween, thank you. Close friends, Hina says. Kanika, parents, my network. Wonderful, lovely guys. What I'm missing here, and even though we've seen a peek of the slides, is one important person whom we started talking about. Can we take a guess as to who that is? Self, myself. Yes, of course. Yes, Lumi, it is myself. Our relationships with ourselves is definitely most important. What we just outlined is the fact that we ourselves have built some of these, what should I say, mental cobwebs, the fear of loneliness and whatnot. And what are we doing? We are not giving care to ourselves. Is that what we are saying? And I have done this exercise several times, and I have been a recipient of this as well. We used to have these leadership programs during my days in my corporate avatar, wherein, especially for women and for men and women both actually, and we've seen that the self comes probably at the end only for maybe barely 5% of people. And in our case, again, it was no different. From whatever list that you were making, you didn't have self. Only first and only person who's our best friend is ourselves. Absolutely sure, but then how much importance are we giving? And by the way, our relationship with ourselves is most important, and it reflects in all the relationships with others, much like this cup, the story of the cup, you all know that. What are you having in your cup today? I'm having tea, I'm having coffee, I'm having juice, I'm having water. And when Damini comes and maybe by mistake, if accidentally, hits me, what comes out of the cup is what I'm holding in this cup. So if you are holding anger, and if you are holding frustration, if you are holding love, that's what's going to come out. So your relationship with yourself becomes very, very important. And with that prelude, I'd just like for you to just take a minute and say that, you are here taking out time and talking about tapping our inner potential and not looking at self. is the last thing that you'd want to do probably after this hour today. So continue to look at yourselves. And I'm going back to my concentric circle example that I started off with. I'm not using the slides right now because you guys are doing a great job with the chat. So I just focus on keep this coming in, because it is self. So self is almost like this, like, this is self, and everything around the family is then formed by it. And then is the society, right? So each of that is a newer circle that gets added on, right? Pretty much like a concentric circle. And when we talk about any of the leadership frameworks, it starts with self-leadership. If you're not leading self, you would not be, kind of showing that example, whether your authenticity and so much more. Each and any of those inspirational leaders, take any example and you'd see they are setting that up as an example by leading self. Now, with that put aside, okay, are we good there? So we understand our relationship with ourselves is very important. Now we start our journey, and start our journey into tapping our inner potential. So first importance, just understand self, spend time, see what you are, who you are. And that's when you start connecting with the purpose. Spring, the more you inbound, yeah, absolutely, Bobby. And I think it becomes more relevant today with all that we are facing through the pandemic, when we can't go outdoors. It has become all the more important to look inwards and see what is it that we deeply need. So now we start with our journey, and I'm almost figuring it out like a road trip or a voyage, whatever you may call it. And then you start connecting with the why, as to why and what is it that is charging me up? What is it that's motivating me? And that's what you start with. And that's where you connect with why. And the why, the model that I'm really talking about or sharing with you, is the Simon Sinek model of the golden circle, which I was just sharing before, the whole good thing of the chat working happened, right? And that model essentially is about the why and the how and the what. A lot of us focus on the what. So what do you do, Pooja? And well, Pooja does, Pooja is the founder of Talent Alchemy, comes in with this. And how does she do it? Is through workshops, through coaching, through offering consulting. And why does she do it? Is because she's passionate about it, and she says she enjoys doing it. That's a way that I could come in and tell my story. But when I started looking inwards in my own journey as an entrepreneur, it is the why. If you start with the inside out approach, it takes a very different shift, wherein I say, well, why I do what I do is because, I love creating a better version of myself, as well as bringing out the best in other people, right? And in that process, it helps me as well. So why I do this is because, I believe in the unique strength that each one of you brings. I believe in the unique potential that each one of us is bringing to this session today. And that is why I am here. And that is why I have embarked on this journey. And how I do it is through sessions like these, through group coaching, through one-on-one coaching, and through various other ways of policy and process design. I work with organizations on doing that. Why I do it is also because I believe that our workplaces need to be more human. They need to be more diverse. They need to be bringing in the perspective of inclusion. And when I say inclusion, yes, gender is an important aspect, but absolutely and truly bringing in diversity. And that's why I do what I do, to create our workplaces more human. And how I do it, I just shared. And what I do is, hence, I'm the founder of Talent Alchemy. And that shifts the story. And again, going back to that example of Surf Excel or maybe Red Label, which says, the swad apne pan ka, they have that tagline. All these marketing, all this branding is done with that why, kind of coming in as a central theme. So look up Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. You will find the videos, you will find how he's actually, talked about it. I would strongly urge for you, as you get onto your journey of tapping into your inner potential, to look for the whys and look at building the story inside out. The second, so the first is purpose. The second would be goals. And it's extremely important to look at goals. The reason I say that is, any idea why do you think goals are so important? Okay, I needed to do that because I want to check if the chat is working or not. Keeping us going, absolutely, motivated. Okay. Yeah, check in our strength. Yeah, helps us stay focused. Okay, wonderful, wonderful, lovely. Lovely. So I think the little story that goes for goals there is, I have a quote here from Stephen Covey. You could read that, but I think the story that I'd like to share there is that of Arjun from Mahabharata. And we all know that he was a favorite student of Dronacharya. And you all would have heard the story of the kind of the bird that the eye of the bird that he had as a focus, and that was the clear goal that he had. Right. So when Dronacharya, very quickly, for those of you who might not have heard it, when Dronacharya was, and these were all young Kauravas and Pandavas, and they said, "You're always taking his side. He's just your pet student. Why is it like that?" So he said, "Okay, I'm building in a small test here." And he hung a bird to the tree, and he said that you have to aim at the eye of the bird. And in that process, what really happened is that everyone was aiming for the eye of the bird. And when Yudhishthir walked in, the first pupil to go, he said, "What do you see?" And he said, "Well, I see, kind of the bird and the tree and the leaves and the branches and some of the other birds." And the others also said similar things. And it was Arjun who said that, "I just see the eye of the bird." And that's the goals. And so goals, as one of you already said, helps you build focus. Goals need to be smart. They need to be simple, measurable. They need to be realistic, actionable, and time-bound. And that's another thing that we really do while working during our coaching assignments. And once you have your purpose aligned, once you have your goals set, you almost have a roadmap, right? You have a roadmap which allows you to, and this really moved in quickly, which allows you to, while you're seeing the roadmap, but then there you go on probably, a voyage, which is allowing you to move. And I think you're ready. You're ready to go ahead and tap in your inner potential. What do you think? Are we ready to go in and start with our purpose connected, with our goals outlined, and having a roadmap? Are we ready? Yes. Yes, excited. Okay. So we think we are ready to go with our purpose found, with the self-introspection, with our goals aligned, and having a roadmap. Wow, I see so many of you ready to go. Wonderful. Well, what happens, my friends, is that as we start on this journey, there are a lot of other roadblocks, and I can say surprise visitors that start coming in. Do we also have something else to add? Yes, we do have something else to add, Manpreet. Please hold on, and we'd also be sharing a little tool towards the end of it. So just hold on for some more time. And there are a lot of visitors that come in, and let's see what those visitors are. And those are very interestingly things like what we talked about at the start. Inner voices and inner dialogues start coming in. And we find this little girl saying things like, "I'm not good enough. I'm too old for this. I'm too young for this. I don't have enough gray hair to maybe take up this position." Someone may say, "Oh, who do you think you are?" So there's this inner critic and the self-doubt, which we talked about, that really starts coming in. Yes. Yes, Manpreet, that's exactly what starts coming in. How do we handle that? And that's where we need to take charge of our roadmap. So all that good work is done and kept aside. That's very, very important for you to get started on this journey. Now you need to be managing this voice, which is again, very, very internal. Now, this is where you would start working. Every time we do that's larger than us, of course, these blocks will surface and you will have to, and hence your goals are important and a roadmap is important so that you are taking those baby steps in that direction. That's keeping you on that trajectory. You will need to manage your self-doubt by, it could be about rephrasing some of that self-talk. Okay, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to kind of start making this particular step. Maybe your presence on social media, I'm going to start doing this particular activity for the next 1 week. I'm going to time my activity for this. So rephrase that talk that is happening in your head, change your words, remove the tentativeness, remove the permission seeking. All of that is going to go a long way in managing that self-talk. You might need additional help. You might need mentoring there. Reach out and ask for support. But the biggest thing that you could do, and my invitation would be, acknowledge the inner critic. Just be sure that you are observing a self which is able to acknowledge that inner critic, that yes, this is what it is. And by the way, this inner critic is serving a purpose. It is not of disservice as long as you use it in a positive way. And maybe we can deep dive on it in, maybe as a reflection, either, post the session, or maybe in one of the additional topics that we might cover later. Yes, you might actually end up self-sabotaging too. So that's one of the things that really comes up. The second bit, and I'm picking up 3 this time around. We got a couple of them at the start. The second one that really comes in is, because we talked about the cultural, social norms, this is what it is. It is about the biases, the cultural stereotypes, and that's true both for men and women, right? This starts coming in. And I've put in some kind of stories there from my own experience. The overthinking, the over-analysis we might do. I'd rather stay quiet and let my work speak. This is how culturally things are done. I will be perceived as someone who's speaking out of my turn. It might burn my bridges, not having difficult conversations. All of that starts happening to us. And this is a picture I would like to, kind of project for a bit and then take in comments and questions. Because this is not just about women, but it's also about men. How many men feel comfortable doing what the man in the picture is doing? The cultural biases and the gender stereotypes are so deeply entrenched that a lot of times we are not even willing to extend ourselves, and we hide behind those cultural roles. Yeah, you do, Raviraj. That's great, Sandeep. Very proud of you, and that's why we have this platform. But the point is, and I think there's a lot of shift that has happened. But there's still work that needs to happen wherein men need to be, so it's not just about you doing it, but maybe you just taking it full time, and the society needs to be okay with it. I have had instances in my extended family wherein people, if the woman is working and if the man is probably taking a job which is not as high flying, it's not considered to be cool. Do you know of people like that? Yes, there are stereotypes, Vaishali, and those there are stereotypes that are set in, and how are we challenging those stereotypes? I think that is what is also limiting us or forming a layer in terms of tapping our inner potential. So you have your whys, you have your goals defined, you have your roadmap, but there are times when you say, do I really need to do this? Well, you know what? I don't think so. I need to. And that's when you need to look at deeply. Am I just talking about the support that I get from the organization that hires me? What is the extra? What is the more that we are doing in terms of taking that extra step or being the change that we want to be? So I've started a series called Regendering the Norm. And I think that is where the idea is that we are able to, as women and as men, able to take charge of some of the things in our own, that self-leadership model at our self level, and start being the change who we want to be. And it will all be about realizing your inner potential and being who you are. So that's the second bit that I want to talk about. And the third bit, essentially, that I want to get in, and before I know we still have time. Any other reactions on this bit, on the gender stereotypes, or something that you observed? There are lots of stories, actually. There are lots of stories. I still remember doing late nights, picking up a certain role. All of this can have so much of maths going on in your head. Do I do this? Do I not do this? Certain profiles are just kind of put forth as men only or as females only. And I think that's what the journey we are all on. Okay, yes. Yes, that's right. This is a lot about conditioning that has passed along, and I think, you know what? It's not about, it's be who you are. It's okay if you want to kind of go ahead and be a full-time mother, and that's absolutely fine. It's not about having a gender stereotype there, but do that with full aplomb. Just be clear on your why, and hence setting those up front will make you happier. Okay. when the woman does not get support for developing her career. Yes, absolutely, Gurpreet. Yeah, that's a very valid point. And vice versa is very rarely seen, that if women are successful, then, how men are being perceived, because there's an identity crisis. And that's why that picture I said, can you just hold it? Because those are roles that have been defined in our subconscious. Okay, so the third one, so we talked about the inner critic, managing the inner critic. The second, we talked about the gender roles and stereotypes. And the third that I'm covering for today's session is our mind and the mind wandering that we face. Because we talked about that as well while we were talking about what comes in between us and tapping into our inner potential. So any idea on what percentage of our waking time is spent, kind of distracted, or is spent mind wandering? What percentage of the time, our waking hours, is our mind wandering? Any idea on that? Let's take a percentage there, Manpreet. 40%, okay, good. 90, okay, that's, okay, yeah, maybe these days it's gone higher. Wow, okay, 50%, 60, okay, I think you guys are really, no one's coming up with a 10 or a 20. It's definitely got to be higher. So I can clearly see that, yes, it's 47%, and I'm sure with Corona and with all that's happened around us, mind wandering must be at a different level now. Yeah, so it is definitely at a 47%. So almost 50% of our waking hours is spent, kind of with our mind getting on. Each time we're getting a new idea, a new brainwave, a new WhatsApp message. How many times have we gone onto the WhatsApp window to go ahead and do something else and ended up doing something else? Several times. And I think it has only worsened over the last few months that we've been virtually working, right? So all of that is happening with us. And I think that's very important for us to quieten this mind chatter. And quietening this mind chatter is essentially, developing a practice and trying to create a habit. And habit creation, as they say, takes 21 days. A lot of the Indian mythology really says it's almost 40 days for forming any habit. It really takes that much time, but you can start working and building on that. Something that I really practice and have found huge benefits is meditation, and is doing some bit around just focusing on your breath. So just taking some time, checking your body posture, and focusing on the in-breath and the out-breath. And I know we won't be able to do that right now, but still we can. Just for a 30 seconds, pause and connect with your breath. Just drop everything, whatever you're doing, and just focus on the breath. If you wish, you can close your eyes. Otherwise, you can just be where you are. And this is a technique where you could focus on and reduce your mind chatter. And again, realign to the why, to the purpose, goals, and get back to your journey. Acknowledge the inner critic if it's showing up. Get into a conversation or get help with someone. And go ahead and look at if biases are coming in from within. So that's essentially, kind of the thought that I would kind of, come back to. Just bear with me. So that's the mind and the thoughts, and that's the waking hours. And this is where we will just spend some time. I think the four things that I'd like to leave you with is invest in a support system, try and build a network, review progress at regular intervals, build accountability, and be very, very deliberate about taking action. This is extremely important, and this is extremely important because we often are not inviting challenging questions for ourselves. Get in someone who's asking you those difficult questions. There used to be a saying which said, whoever is, not speaking so good of you, try and be closer to that person. Ninda karne wale ko apne paas mein rakhna chahiye, something like that. Which essentially means, well, today the world is much different from maybe when the quote was said, but you need to be listening in and having that patience and building in that accountability with what you are doing. Accountability with the roadmap, accountability with the goals, accountability with the purpose that you've decided. And by the way, the purpose keeps changing, it keeps evolving. Goals again keeps changing and keep evolving. So with that, I think We are almost at the top of the hour, but what I wanted to do with you is this little exercise on the wheel of life. Tamini, do you think we have a few minutes to go ahead and do this?
Yes, yes, we do. We have time. So you can take us through this exercise.
Okay, wonderful. So do you have a piece of, yes, please keep sharing your questions, and I think we'll get to them. But do you have a piece of paper and pen with you? And if you don't have, probably you get one, because what we're going to be doing is something which we do at the start of any coaching journey. Fantastic, thank you. What I want you to do is, in the wheel of life, first, let me just explain to you the concept as to what it is and what we are trying to do. So just a second. For some reason, I'm not able to share my screen. Okay.
Can you try now?
Sure, I will. Yeah. Sorry, this is like the MPV. The MP3 file is like playing up a little bit, so just bear with me. Okay, there you go. What you have here is, kind of a sample wheel of life. What we try and do, here is, let me just kind of go ahead and first explain it to you. Why don't you list down some 6 to 8 areas in your life which are extremely important for you? And these could be health, family, friends, relationships, money. I'm just giving you ideas. You need to list down 6 to 8, and you need to have a circle and divide it into, kind of maybe 6, something like this, or something that you saw on the slide, something like this, or something that you saw on the slide, right? List down what's pie diagram. Yeah, you could call it like a pie. Let's not get into the circle yet, but let's list down 6 to 8 areas that you think are very, very critical for you. This is also something that will help you with your goals and your purpose finding as well. And as I was indicating to you, these could be things like health, could be family, friends, relationships. Now, what we are trying to do is, we call it the, wheel of life, or the life wheel, concept by Paul Mears. Again, you could look it up. And happy to take up any reflective questions as well after the session. The reason it's called a wheel and not a circle is essentially because a wheel needs to have that equal distribution at its edges to be able to work and function as a wheel, right? And we will see as we fill up this wheel as to what really happens, and that's when we will come to that. What I want you to do now is list down those 6, 5, or whatever. Take a circle, draw a circle, and divide it into the number of components that you've listed down. If you've listed down 5, divide it into 5 equal, or whatever close to equal that you can divide, or 6 or 7 or 8. Typically 6 to 8 is what we take. And list down, for example, you put down, maybe family here, and you put down health here, and you put down money or finances here, career here. You put down, yourself or maybe friends here, and my social causes here, right? So you start listing those down here, okay? So what's there at the center is, if we are done with it, are we done with it? Okay, great. So then at the center, treat this as a 0, and the outward part, that is the outer part of the radius, treat this as 10. And now start rating. For example, in friends, maybe you think you are at a 6 right now. You are helping friends enough, and you could shade this portion, and you could make a colorful life feel as well. If you have crayons, etc., you could do this and draw another version of this. If maybe at career you think you're doing really well right now, maybe you could be at 9. Money, maybe you need more, you could be at 3. So do you see that? Like your, the wheel starts getting colored like this. Let me just try doing this and show it to you a little bit. Yeah, so if it is at 3, so money comes in here. Similarly, the next one really can go higher. Okay, and then you start getting a wheel like we were sharing earlier. So just spend some time, don't be in a rush. This is how your scoring can look like. The reason I didn't share the slide is only because I wanted you to come up with your own elements here. These are the typical elements that you could have, but it might differ from person to person. But these are the typical 8 elements that you could have. You could choose to have these, and then you can come up with a wheel. So you'd see somewhere you are maybe at an 8, somewhere you're at a 9, somewhere you're maybe at a 2. And you would have the name of this section also where you are at a 2. Similarly, somewhere you are at a 5. And once you are done, just let me know. I'm keeping this for some time and giving ourselves 20 seconds so that we can all finish in. And once you are done, please type in the chat. Okay, I see the chat popping up. Fantastic. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so there is a question by Lumi. Scoring depends on personal situation or how much we want it to be.
Yeah, so it's right now where you are. That's a great question, Lumi, because I think the next step for the wheel can be, so where do you want to work? So if I'm at 2 on health, for example, or maybe creating or learning guitar, for example, if I put that out, because that's really important for me, and I'm at 3 maybe, and looking at this wheel, and now you all have your wheel in front of you. Yeah, you could take a look and see as to where is it that you want to work. Is it friends where you need to focus on? Or is it some other relationships that you need to kind of be re-energizing? Or is it work? And then you start delving deeper and building an action plan. So this is one of the first steps I can say that can help you to see. And that's where the analogy of not a circle, but the wheel, because you can see that the wheel will not work well if you are at a 2 at some place. So the 5 and 6 might still get managed, but imagine the bumpiness that it would bring to itself. That's where the analogy of the wheel. So I know we did this. If there are multiple areas, can we take up 2 or 3 areas of our lives? Say more, Manpreet.
So I'll just unmute Manpreet so she can ask if it's related to this exercise. Let's unmute her.
Hi.
Yeah. Yes, hi.
So my question would be that if in the wheel, so I've listed 6 areas, and in that 2-3 scores the same, right? There are 3 areas that are the same score. So can I take up all these 3 areas and focus them together, or would you recommend that I focus on one first and then move along? How would one deal with it?
That's a great question, Manpreet, but you're moving to the next level. I think what we would do then is do some breathing and quieten our mind chatter to see why are these 3 areas coming up and are they really at the score that they are? I would want you to do a closer analysis and then make a hard choice of picking up one probably. Because again, going back to our goals discussion, we want those goals to be realistic. Let's see if we can do all those 3 in that given time or not. And if they are related, then why not? But let's not try and set up for something which is very ambitious and which is not giving us the feeling of accomplishment or getting us achieve what we've set out to.
Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Great. No, you are already moving to the next step there. So fantastic. What I would say is, given that we have 10 more minutes to go, and I'd like to take up some more questions. Go back and draw this wheel again. Kind of just whatever you've done today based on that purpose. Go ahead, look at Simon Sinek and the why, how, and the what thing as well. and then see as to what is coming up for you. Go ahead and do the live wheel. And I'm happy to take up any questions or any reflections that might come for you, kind of later. So I think that's all pretty much that I had for this session. And I know we are almost again at the end. Can I just share the last slide, Damini? I'm again not able
Yes, yes, please do that.
How to work on emotions, Shubh is asking.
Yes.
Okay. What on emotions, Shubh, that you want to work on? I will need to, yeah, and that's where we had a little bit of mindfulness that we tried to do today. And that's pretty much where we will end, for an exploratory discussion that I'm willing to look at if there are any unanswered questions. But let's get to questions now. And Shubh, yes, do you want to?
I'll just unmute.
Yes.
Yeah. Shubh, you can hear me?
I'm audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, ma'am, actually, like I told that I'm a little weak in my emotions, that I got angry very fast and I can't hold on my anger. Like when someone is teasing me, or like not teasing, when they are not going according to my perception or mindset, I get irritated and feel very angry. I get aggression too fast. So what to do with that?
Sure. So I think this does require maybe maybe a more detailed chat, but I would just say that acknowledging your emotion when they are occurring, but also probably looking at the triggers, what is causing that anger, might be a good thing to start working with. You might also want to, as I've mentioned, get and seek some support in a more structured way and have a plan around it. That is, as I said, be deliberate about it. Look at what is it that you can do. If you're very clear, and thanks for bringing it up right now, because that itself says that you are acknowledging that, right? So I think what you need to do is move ahead and start building a plan around it so that you are able to then address it, and don't leave it just by bringing it up. So we can definitely take it offline and talk more. But I think right now what I would say is just acknowledging it and getting some support in a structured manner might be a good step. Reading and journaling is another thing that I would highly recommend. But yeah, Shubh, I hope that helps.
Yeah, so Vinod has a question. We'll just unmute him.
Sure.
Vinod, please go ahead.
Hi, Pooja. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Vinod. Good to see you.
Yeah, same here. A wonderful session. Thank you so much for doing this. So my question, Pooja, is, so initially we were talking about, what is it that holds us back? So there were a lot of good ideas which came earlier, but at least in my mind, what I find is the fear of success is something that I feel, holds us back. We ourselves kind of don't acknowledge that, oh, we can be that successful. And that itself is, our biggest enemy.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that front? And, how do we overcome that fear of success?
Wonderful question. And I think, yes, I kind of hear what you are saying. And that's also a form of a self-doubt. I'm hearing some bit on self-doubt and the self-sabotage bit as well. How can I do so well? And I think that's something which, sharing from my own personal experience, I would say is maybe we need to look at how success has been defined for us, and sometimes how we are wired to treat that success. Probably culturally it has been told to under promise, over deliver, and some of those things are really deeply embedded, which is not allowing us to celebrate ourselves the way we want to. So just to be a little more specific to your question, Vinod, I think I would highly recommend to look at as to what does success mean to you. And I think defining that would also help you overcome that fear, because a lot of times success is getting defined by how others are seeing. What success might mean to me might be different from what it means to you, but you might have a fear for that success which you are seeing. And I think that's what happens a lot of times, because we are rubbing that on each other, because the external world is wanting us to see in a certain way. So I think that's one I would recommend, kind of defining what success means to you. And then secondly, looking closely as to where is this fear coming from? Are there some instances where, maybe the success wasn't pictured in that way, or, you kind of had not such good experience. So that's another thing that you might want to explore. And again, that would be with some help. And the third bit that I would say essentially is still going out and maybe trying to celebrate success. We don't celebrate ourselves that often. So circling back from in the journey, if I would say, so, starting with self and taking time to celebrate ourselves, that's also something that allows you to overcome that fear that you might have built up. But happy to chat, kind of, and do a deeper dive around this, Vinod, if you would see the need for this. Does that help?
Yeah, so our next question, it has come from Lumi, and she wants to know, what sometimes the finding a purpose itself can be very confusing. So what to do in that case?
Yeah. It can be, and Lumi, it's a journey. I wouldn't say that purpose is something that, aaj ho gaya, and then tomorrow, you might have shifts, and it changes with life stages as well. It does change with life stages. I would say strongly, continuing to having enough room for it to be able to allow the life stages and the various other dependencies also coming in. But going ahead and using some tools that allow you to define the purpose would be good, rather than just thinking and sitting and imagining that the purpose would not reappear, or it would not get created out of thin air. So being very deliberate about it and taking some action would be good. I would recommend what I have shared with you already. Trying that out is a set approach in terms of finding out the whys. And sometimes the why itself can take a 5 why approach. So why do you want to do this? So what does it bring to you? And how do you want to do it? And then what do you want to do? So I think that definitely is something that you might want to do. So I would recommend strongly to be looking at a very deliberate approach, finding out some tools. What I have recommended maybe doesn't suit you that well. Maybe you want more ideation. So just explore a little, read a little more. So there's Ikigai that is available. There are a few set of questions that are available on purpose. You could look at some of those approaches and start drawing a blueprint around what it would be. Purpose is a difficult, kind of thing to find. And it almost feels like a monk if I'm kind of trying to tell you that, you go ahead and you do some mindfulness and quieten the mind chatter and purpose would arrive. My recommendation would be to take the help of a tool and some set of questionnaire or some help there that will help you define the purpose. I hope that helps, Lumi.
So we'll take up our last question from KR Anuradha.
Sure.
Anuradha, we have unmuted you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I see your question, Anuradha.
I think there is some audio issue from her end. Her question is on weakness, and it's a very pertaining question that at times we get motivated, but that fizzles out quite soon. So what to do in that case?
Absolutely, and that's why I had that imagery of the roadmap and everything ready, and then fizzling out video, which you saw was. That's a great question. Thanks, Anuradha. I think it happens to all of us. And I think that's where you need to build in a structure and invest in that. I strongly and have seen it could be through your own network, through your friends. It could be deliberately through your professional network. It could be finding out some people who are able to give you and offer you that support and energize you. That's in the external world. It could be internal again. You could look at some techniques that are really working out you to keep your energy high, right? It could be even that. So you could look at both internal and external techniques that can help you, kind of get motivated and not fizzle out. Again, the point that I mentioned about being accountable. So building in that accountability is very important. The last thing that I would like to share, Anuradha, to your point there is, there's this Harvard research which has actually mentioned very clearly that, a lot of times we have our goals, but we don't write them, right? So first of all, only 14% people work with set goals, so as to say. Of them, only 3% write the goals. And the research says that almost 30%, you're 30% more likely to achieve your goals if you're writing them. And if that helps, Anuradha, because probably it might, because a lot of times we are probably not even putting enough time and thought in writing down our goals. So going back to it can also be a way. By the way, our mind gets, I'm using the word tricked, actually into some of these hacks that are available to us. Yeah? Does that help, Anuradha?
So I think we are actually out of time, and there are so many questions coming in, but we would like one last tip from you or something on this, tapping your potential, our potential. So one last word on that before we end the session.
I would say, self-belief and having the conviction within self is extremely important. Have a mantra for yourself that keeps you going, and that keeps rephrasing all this fizzleness or that happens, the weakness that comes in, or the anger that comes in, and emotions. So I think to help you stay on track. But the one last thing would be bring self at the center. As we started and we discovered, most of us don't have that. So most of us forget ourselves. So bring the self in center, use the tools, have an outline for purpose and goals, and be very, very structured about what you're trying to achieve. Get support, reach out to people, invest in a network. I know I said so much, but there is actually so much about this to summarize, I would say. Well, thank you. I think I love the interaction. I was really apprehensive at the start when the chat wasn't working, but this is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pooja, for joining us and for sharing those lovely words. We are sorry for the technical glitches again, working on Zoom, but it's a good way to connect with each other at this time right now. And we would like to thank our amazing audience as well for being here, interacting with us, joining us for one session after the other. And Sipping Thoughts would continue to bring you many more amazing sessions as well. You can check out this video on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube page. And we wish you all a very good evening, and thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Pooja. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.